Swadee-hap! Hello, and welcome to the Create Nate Create YouTube channel. Thank you for being here. Thank you to all the new subscribers. I'm your host, Nate, and today we're going to be doing a kind of breakdown, behind the scenes look at Wayward Gods Episode 1. If you haven't watched Wayward Gods Episode 1 yet, what are you doing? Please go watch it, then come back. And if you have watched it, well, thank you for watching it. Working on this video has been a long and winding road. The intention wasn't originally to make a 4-minute, episodic short film, but because I'm naturally a filmmaker, I think I just gravitated towards it somehow. I couldn't get away from making a short film, so that's how it ended up there. So let me give you a little background on how this all started. I have many kind of renders and images that I've made over the past couple years. I've only been doing 3D for 3 years and a little bit now. This would be my 4th year of learning 3D. And over time, I kind of have gradually gone from a little shot of an ice cube to this short film. Basically continually challenge myself along the way to try and learn new skills. And I feel like this Wayward Gods Episode 1 is the kind of the culmination, or at least the first culmination of all my efforts. So again, it started out, I have a lot of renders that I've made over the years, and one of the renders in particular was a render of our hero Tetsugun here, kind of dropping down over a pit of mechanical nagas, kind of the Thai dragons, if you will. Or they're technically giant snakes, I guess, but they're kind of like dragon snakes. So anyway, I have this image of Tetsugun, or kind of diving into the pit of nagas. And I posted it to Facebook. And one of the comments was like, well, did you model all of that by yourself? And the answer is no, I didn't model it. Like I like composition, I like lighting, I like getting the mood of picture right, but I never considered myself a modeler. It's not my ambition to model everything in a scene, Unlike some people like Ian Hubert, who's like just a genius. He does, everything, he can do everything, right? And he's my idol. But anyway, I got that comment. And I was thinking to myself, all right, let's see if you can really do it. It started from there, and I set off to model the environment. So I have this kind of idea of a power plant base kind of thing where this giant mechanical naga lives. And it belongs to the evil villains, the evil corporation, the Naga Corporation, or the villains of the Wayward Gods world. So my goal was to model everything in the scene. Every little bits of greeble that you see in the scene, I modeled that by hand. And I just kind of kit bashed my own kit bash set together to make it, yeah. And you can see kind of the progression of how I went from, like this first image to this next image. By the time I had finished, I had built up a scene. I had built up kind of a setting. And once I had that setting, I was like, well, I can start having camera moves and I can start animating the character. So the first shot I did was a shot of Tetsugun on the motorcycle, just riding in and then revealing the entire kind of setting. Now at this point, that was all I was gonna do. I thought I was just gonna leave it at that. That was around July of last year. And I thought, well, that's good enough. It kind of snowballed from there. I'll go into detail. We'll pick out some choice shots from the short film, and we'll break them down, see how they're put together, and some of the issues I had kind of rendering, or all that kind of stuff, all the technical stuff in Blender. Okay, Blender was the software of choice that I used for this project. So before we go into the individual shots, I just want to answer a couple questions here. One of them is, did you render this in the cloud? The answer is no. I did not render this in the cloud. The entire short film was rendered locally, on my machine. And so that's the next question is, what are the specs of your machine? Well, the specs of my machine, which you can see here, I actually have 2 GPUs. One is an RTX 3090 and one is an RTX 3080 Ti. So I have a pretty powerful machine. Although when I think about, could I have rendered this in the cloud? Yeah, I probably could have, and it might have been faster. It just would have taken even more money. And I was like, well, let's just see if I can do everything by myself, right? That's kind of the goal, is trying to prove that, can a person do this by themselves? And I proved to myself, yeah, I can do it. I can do it. It takes a hell of a lot of time. It took a long time. And even when I thought I was finished, I wasn't finished. I had actually gotten to the halfway point of this video. There's the shot where the dragon, the Naga dragon, whatever, comes down and kind of faces Tetsugun, and they're kind of staring at each other. And that is originally where I had left it. I thought, okay, that's good enough. I don't need to do any more. It'll just be kind of a little build-up teaser, right? And I thought I was done. And then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, well, I don't think I can leave it at that. I think they need to actually fight, you know? And at that point when I made that decision, it was like, all right, let's just see how many more shots do I need to do to complete this video. And so I made these. These are the kind of thumbnail storyboards of the second half of the video. And when I counted out the number of shots, there was like 25, 30 shots that I needed. I think in the end I ended up doing more than I originally planned, because that's just the way it always is when you're filmmaking. You plan like this shot, and then when you actually put it in the edit next to each other, you'll find, oh, I need this shot, I need that shot, you know. So it's a process. But knowing that I could at best do 1 or 2 shots a day, usually it was 1 shot a day, I knew that doing all of this would take another month, at least another month. And it ended up taking another like 2 months basically. Now, of course, that original 6 months, I wasn't working on this project every day. It wasn't constant. But for the second half, it was basically 1 straight shot of render, do the shot, finish shots. And that was crunch time. That was hard. That was really hard on me physically too. Yeah, it was very, very stressful. But it's done, you know. And once it was done, you're like, oh. You feel like I don't want to do that again. But you know, now that some time has passed, I'm slowly getting back into it. Now, actually, I haven't touched Blender in a good 2 months now. So I probably should get back into it. But yeah, the burnout from doing this project is very real. And the goal, hopefully, is to take this video and go and talk with, you know, Netflix or Disney or any other studio, you know. That's the dream, right? And just try and get some projects going with these big guys. So if you're out there, guys, please contact me. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's go look at some shots in the computer. ไปต่อครับ Create, Nate, create! Okay, so here we are in Blender, and I just wanted to show you these are all the render folders for each shot in the video here. So there's quite a few of them. And some of these project files have more than 1 shot or more than 1 camera angle in them. My naming system is messed up, so don't follow my main. I have no idea. This was like there was no like organization, or very little organization when it came to the file system, naming system, all that stuff. Like, don't follow me on that. Like, there's people out there who can teach you how to do a better job. So this is kind of the original Greeble city, kind of what I call the Greeble complex shot. No, so this is just the static shot of this render, which I have. And this was kind of the original completed angle of this shot. Oh, this is like the daylight version too. I had kind of different HDRIs. There's really, yeah, from this angle it looks terrible. And eventually I kind of retextured a lot of this stuff. But originally I had just made it to look good from, you know, this one particular angle. And what I found was that in doing kind of the other shots, I had to gradually build out the other side. So the camera would face this side, I would have buildings here. And as I did the short film, I had to add, you know, buildings back here, you know, back here. I had to basically build out the scene as I was doing it. And there's sometimes, you know, there's not like perfect continuity in all of these shots, between all the shots. Sometimes I would adjust things just so that it looked good for a particular camera angle. But the base was kind of starting from here. Yeah. So I modeled pretty much all of these greebles and wires and everything. It all started from basically a cube. And then here's my lamp, very simple. And you can see my crappy little car, which I didn't delete. I was like, how can I make a car like really simple? I thought we'd only see it from a distance. And basically you only see it from very far away. But if you look up close, it's a really crappy, yeah. All right, so that's kind of the first shot here. So let's see what are the elements of this shot. So I got a lot of fog, obviously. The fog is a big one to make things look, you know, bigger and more distant. So let's see what happens when I switch the fog off. Not that much difference in this one. A little bit lighter, but it does help. And I have these steam. These are Ian Hubert's steam assets. So if you play it, you should see them kind of moving, yeah. And I use this steam asset all over the place. It is everywhere in the video. So extremely useful, and I got it from Ian's Patreon. Yeah. So yeah, this is pretty simple for the first shot. In the process of making one of these greebles, you can see a lot of repeated kind of pieces. Like this piece, this piece, this piece. These are all repeated. But basically when you chunk them together, you know, over and over and over and over and over and over and over, and then you look at it from a distance, you can't really tell what's what. Yeah. It's pretty simple, but it looks complex. But putting it together, it just takes time. You know, you piece it together in a way that looks good to you. But I probably spent like a few days making each one of these. You know, like this particular tower here. You know, making all these greebles gradually over time. You know, over a period of a few days, and then piecing them together into larger and larger, kind of more complex bits. So this is the opening shot of the entire video, of the entire short film. So it kind of pans down from the sky with this dust debris. So this was like a really handy plugin. Free, I think it was free too, yeah. Now you can see the leaves here they're actually maple leaves. If you look closely, like here, they're actually maple leaves. I didn't bother to change them. Here, Easy Windy Leaves. That's the name of the plugin. And the cool thing was it's just, you know, it's just kind of like a geometry node setup with particle systems. That's kind of responsible for the particles, which I used everywhere. By the end of the video, these Easy Windy Leaves were everywhere because I had to kind of place them in front of the camera, right? And every time I had a new camera, I would place a new Easy Windy Leaves, or I would try and move the old ones to the new spot. And they kind of accumulated over the course of making the video, because I had only started out with one or, I don't know, 2 or 3 of these Easy Windy Leaves setups. By the end, I had like a ton of them. And that's why in the very end shots of the video, you see a lot of, kind of dust going by the camera, because I had so many of them by the end. But I thought it looked cool. I really love adding particles to the wind, and it just gives everything an atmosphere. I really like, I put it in almost every shot. So that's become like something that I almost always use. Well, the cool thing is that once motion blur is turned on, then you won't see that they're maple leaves. They're just kind of white streaks, which you can see here. So the reason the camera is so different from so this is kind of the render view, right? And then this is the viewport kind of polygon view. And the reason they're so different is because I had a panoramic camera activated on it. Yeah, so you see here, this is panoramic fisheye eco-solid 24mm lens. So this is quite a wide lens. And the Blender can't display panoramic view in this kind of unrendered polygon view. It can't show you exactly how the final render is going to look. So you come into the final render, and this is where you pick your real final camera angle, right? So that's what you get. You get this cool kind of curve here. And I used the panoramic camera quite a few times in the video. There's some shots that you just want to get the wide and you want the curve. It gives you kind of almost an anamorphic look to it. So that's what I did for this opening shot. Now the motorcycle is one that it's kind of a leftover from when I first started doing 3D. I think in the future, if I make another video, then I'll probably try and model a motorcycle by myself, see how that goes. But for now, I use this motorcycle, which is kind of kit bashed together from different pieces. And I think they were mostly free. The motorcycle was definitely free, the main part of the motorcycle. And then I kind of just textured it with all those neon lights. But originally, like this whole rig of Tetsugun, the hero, sitting on the bike, is kind of hand posed. Yeah, like all these fingers, I came in and I kind of posed them on the bike by hand. And the funny thing is, like in the first version of this shot, which is the shot where it kind of follows him and then it goes all the way to the city. Yeah. His arms were very thin. Yeah, his arms were very thin. And I was like, that kind of bothered me. So I went into the sculpting mode here. So I went into sculpting mode and I used this one, inflate. Yeah, so originally his arms were too thin. And this is the kind of thing you have to do. It depended on the shot. Some shots, like his arms looked good, he was muscular, and some shots, like he needed some touch-ups, And this one in particular, I need to inflate his arms so they looked bigger. So I came in with this inflate kind of tool, and I just, inflated it like this. So his arms got bigger. And I did that so that it looked good and there wasn't too much messed up in the mesh, basically, or in the textures. And that's how I fixed that problem. If you compare before and after, you can see like the difference. But that was like the very first shot that I did for the video. This shot was funny. Originally, when I uploaded the video to Facebook, someone commented like, "Improve your lighting," on the original version of this, and I was like, "Yeah, you're right." So I added a lot more lights to make it kind of make the definition of the mask stand out. And again, like him on the bike, he doesn't actually move. Like he's just kind of still, but it's all right. Like when you're on a motorcycle, you can kind of stay still, and you won't really notice. And I kind of animated him lifting up off the bike and the bike kind of turning to the side there. That was animated by hand. Yeah. And all the steam here. Let's see what happens when we turn off the steam. The steam helps with the depth as well. Yeah. So in the edit, you render out all your shots, and then in the edit, you figure out what parts that work. Originally, I was like, should I have this shot, kind of a close-up shot of him? And then eventually I went for the reverse shot behind his head so that I can kind of reveal the Naga kind of in front of him. But the basic animation is basically the same. It's just picking a different camera angle for what you think the story needs or how you want to tell the story, right? And you kind of reveal information bit by bit. So this shot was a shot that I was really happy with how it turned out. And when I first saw it, I was like, oh wow, like I was impressed by the level of kind of detail and what you could achieve with computer graphics on a home computer these days. Like it surprised me. Yeah. So there's a lot going on in this shot. This is a very heavy shot to render. I've got the easy windy leaves going and the dragons and the soldier. Man, the soldiers were, yeah, those are very heavy. I had like a really high poly version of the soldiers, which for these wide shots, I had to kind of decimate and make them more manageable for this particular shot that, and kind of instance copy all of these. So instancing again is when you take one object, let's say, and then you copy it, but you copy it in a way that's linked. Yeah. And when it's linked, it doesn't eat as much memory. So normally when you copy, you press Shift D. That's a normal copy where if you change one copy, the other copy isn't affected. But in a linked copy, in kind of an instance, you press Alt D to copy it, and then you'll get the linked version, which eats less memory. So if you look at this in the lower corner here, I've got 4 million polygons here, which, given the scene, it's not that high. It's because all of these buildings are instanced as well. Like this is an instance, this is an instance, all of these are instance, all these little bits, there's really only one of them. I mean, this is my understanding. Like I only really needed one of them, and I just instance copy until it gets way more complex, right? I think Tetsugun himself is a quite, with him, it was kind of a balancing act. I only used one model for basically the entire video of Tetsugun, which is kind of a model that looks good enough close up. It didn't always look great close up. Some close ups you can see like jagged edge on his shoulder or whatever. But for most of the close ups, particularly in the helmet, this level of detail worked. And I just didn't want to be switching in and out different models of the hero, which, in an ideal like situation where you want the maximum quality, you would have different levels of detail, right? The LODs. But for Tetsugun, I was like, all right, this one model is in between. It's halfway. It's good that I can use it in close-ups for the most part, and then in wide shots, it's not too heavy. So I think him alone is like, it was around 500,000 polygons, something like that. So I didn't model the character of, I didn't model any of the human characters. Yeah, none of the human characters are modeled by me. These were kind of pieced together. This backpack I bought from one website. The body, the clothes, the outfit I bought from another website, and I textured the arm by myself. The shoes are from a separate website, you know, and I listed them in the credits of the video. But you know, that's kind of what you do. I'm not a modeler, and I never claim to be a modeler. I'm a filmmaker who's trying to, you know, make films basically. And I'm trying to learn the minimum that I have to get to the point of making a film, right? Yeah. So I'm definitely not skilled enough to model a human being. That's like one of the hardest things to do in CG anyway, right? And so that was just using pre-made models. Yeah. And the helmet sculpt is by my friend Sasawat Intakun, Saintakun on Instagram. He's the one who modeled the helmet of Tetsugan. And this project is kind of pieced together over a long time. Like the model for the helmet was one of the first things I ever got for Wayward Gods. And it's just, you know, you kind of accumulate all the bits and pieces that you need over time, over a period of years basically, until you can make a short film, you know, yeah. So it's not like all of this was done in even in 6 months. It's not true. Like there are parts of this that were made, you know, like this siren here. I made that one day for a different short film, you know, and then I got to reuse it here. Yeah. Let's see. Well, the Naga is like a whole other thing by itself. So I modeled, you know, a ring of scales for the Naga, and then that I used an array modifier to clone them across a curve, right? I cloned them across a curve, and there's multiple curves, Nagas in here. So here's one, here's two, here's three. So in this case, there's definitely at least 2 instances of the Naga here. The Naga is quite heavy too. But if you want to have the Naga in different shapes, you could move each point in the curve to get a new kind of look to it. But anyway, yeah, like it was a lot. There's a lot of points along here, and kind of getting them, you know, to look cool. You gotta hand place them basically. You hand place them. Like this is a curve until it looks good, and then, you know. In the scene, I kind of try to hide the fact that there's multiple Naga. You want to make it look like there's one long Naga going through the whole thing. That was the idea, right? So you kind of hide the heads of it. So I followed a tutorial on YouTube on how to model and animate a snake. And that one was really helpful in doing the Naga. That's kind of the basis for the whole thing. So check the link in the description for that tutorial. It's quite good. Go back to the beginning. You can see here there's no floor. This was kind of a cheat. This was a cheat. You kind of want to pick the animation for the shot that fits the shot, or you pick the shot that fits the animation, you know. And for this particular shot, not only that, but the set design, you kind of had to. So you see his hand comes in, has to grab at the top, and his foot needs to have something to land on. Yeah, like all of these pieces had to be placed, you know, in a certain position that correlated with the animation, right? And it's not perfect. Like the thing about the Mixamo in particular, like you can see his foot clip through. His foot's clipping through here on the, but it's so fast you won't notice it in a motion blur, right? But yeah, you had to design the parts so that you have to design the set so that it matches the animation. And even then, it kind of is messed up. So you can see here his hand is kind of above the platform. And that was the strange thing, that like it matches here, On the blue one, it matches. But the hand moves up. The hand moves up as he's moving up, and it's still flat. So that was a problem with the Mixamo animation, in the sense that, like, normally if you push down and push yourself up off of a ledge, the hand should be flat on the exact same spot, right? That's how it should be. But in the Mixamo animation, it kind of floated up. So it's not a perfectly motion captured. That motion captured data isn't perfect, but you can live with it. It doesn't have to be perfect. So I put a light up here just because I wanted some light hitting him from the top. These are the kinds of tricks that you do in cinematography too. Just to make a shot look good, you place things out of the frame. So you can get the lighting that you want, right? So it's hidden from the camera. But when you look at it, you get these nice kind of highlights in the reflections. So here, you get a lot of these reflections from the lights there. And once I had made this shot, I figured, wow, okay, so maybe a real short film is possible. A real short film is possible. And this is it's like opening up a whole can of worms, basically, that you're like, okay, I guess I'm doing this. Here we go. So this is it. This is the big explosion shot. And you can see it starts out here. This shot was really heavy to run. There's a laser blast. And this little puff of green is the VDB. So that is a VDB explosion. Where is it? So this is from the website Embergen. Embergen is a separate standalone kind of software for generating VDB volumetric effects. So you can do explosions, you can do dust, you can do kind of wind, tornadoes, anything kind of like smoky and foggy it can do, including explosions. And the great thing about Embergen is there's a number of free assets on their website, and that's what I did. I didn't go into Embergen and design my own explosions. That was that would take a whole other learning process of learning how to use that software, which I was like, all right, I'll just use the explosions that they let you download for free on the website, and that's what I did for this. And I kind of designed the shot so that the explosion would work. So this particular explosion on the front is cool because it kind of falls you can see it streaks out of the back like that. This is a pretty heavy scene. So this is 6 million polygons. It's because there's so much debris. There's a lot of debris that's kind of being emitted by a particle. But anyway, the kind of direction of the explosion was cool. It's kind of going down like that. So the shot is designed to follow with the existing explosion. Again, you have these assets, and then you just kind of make them work for what you need within the world that you have. And for this particular, let's shut off the explosions here. Explosions are hard to render. But the destruction of this tower was like a whole thing in itself. So I had this tower built. It's like its own separate model, right? And what I learned from another great kind of YouTube tutorial person called Rafo VFX. So Rafo VFX on Patreon has a tutorial going over how to do explosions of cars. And the cool thing about that particular method of explosion is that it doesn't, the secret it uses a cloth sim. So it kind of turns each of these pieces into cloth, basically. and then you shoot a force through it so that the cloth kind of rips apart. And in that ripping, that gives you a cool look that kind of looks like metal ripping, right? Yeah. And I think in addition, I had a lot of emitters just to give a lot more debris flying out. Yeah. Oh yeah. So what I did for this particular tower exploding here, I did the simulation part in a completely different file. Okay, the cloth simulation of the tower going like that, I was in a completely different file. And then I baked it out as an alembic. So an alembic is basically geometry animation keyframes, kind of like that. Yeah. And so that I could just import the entire tower exploding and then put it into the scene. Because this scene has a lot of other parts in it. And if I had to simulate, like a brand new simulation in the scene, that would take forever to render. So I simulated the explosion in a completely separate scene and I baked it into an alembic. Yeah. And that is what allowed me to import it into this scene and not be so heavy in rendering. And then the good thing about baking in an alembic too is that a lot of this, like this entire debris here that's flying out, the debris that's flying out here is actually the same simulation that I originally did for the tower. And so you can see, like, I also added a smoke kind of emitter on each of these particles at the moment that there's an explosion. Here this is the VDB explosion from Embergen. So here I placed it down here. I was like, oh, okay, what would happen? Eventually I moved it to the explosion that you saw that has the downward streaks. Yeah. But this is kind of, the original tests here. Yeah, these are the original tests that I did to see how the explosion worked, yeah. And it looks pretty good. Yeah, I think this looks pretty good. This one was easier. This one, yeah, again, I took the alembics that I had baked out for this particular tower and I just copied and pasted them here. They just have to go out like that. They didn't have to actually have a force look like it was knocking it back in the same way that I did for the original tower destruction simulation. So it's cutting corners, right? It's cutting corners. You just take what you have and then cut and paste and make it look good so that it just flies out. And so you can see here, like this is yeah, not everything lines up. Not everything is physically accurate. You're just putting things to make it look good. Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot. There's big particles and tiny little particles here. Like these are super tiny little particles being emitted here, micro debris. Yeah. Just to give it that detail. I don't know how many particles am I emitting here? 20,000. 20,000 particles. Yeah. So that's a lot. That's a big explosion of particles right there. And getting these to look good was it depended on the shot too. Yeah, depending on the shot, it could look good or it could look bad. Yeah, you kind of just have to go by eye. There's no formula that I found that kind of works. You can see all the different layers of destruction that I had here. There's the booth. Yeah, there's a big one right there, right? Yeah. So these are all alembics, again, from the same tower. And I had different pieces of the tower that exploded. So I had, 4 or 5 different alembics that I could explode, basically. So a shot like this, I forget how long I spent on this, but just doing the original explosion, the tower thing, that took like a couple days, and then I could have spent a week on this shot just alone on this particular one because it was so complicated. Yeah. Yeah, but once I had done it, then I was able to change the angle. You know, I got this angle, I got that angle from the top. You know, and then you can kind of leverage all the work that you do for other shots. You know, so it's not just one shot for a week's worth. You can actually get like 3 or 4 shots. You know, the other shots will maybe take a day or 2 by themselves, but a lot of the work, heavy lifting, has gone into this part of the render. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, this is another interesting thing. So the thing about explosions is they need a glow to look good. So this is kind of the compositing setup that I had. I have a glare here, which is what gives the render the glow. So let's just render this image here. Oh yeah, with motion blur too. Jeez. Okay, it's taken a while to render. This is about 200 samples. So in the rendering of each of these shots, yeah, I didn't use that many samples. Usually it was around 200 to 300. Just because I'm impatient. So sometimes you'll see some noise in the renders. I'm like, all right, that's enough. Like I didn't need it to be perfect. If I had rendered using a render farm, as a lot of people ask me, like I probably could have gotten much higher quality renders in a limited amount of time. But for this, it was sufficient for my own needs. Like when you render a shot, you don't just render it once. You usually have to render it like, I don't know, 5-6 times before you get what you want, right? That's just the process of iteration that you have to go through. Like you would render a low res version, and then, you know, in the low res version, you can get the animation, you can get the lighting in general, but you don't get the details, right? So usually you have to do many rounds of renders before you come to a finished shot. And just by virtue of how many times I need to render shots, I try to keep the samples as low as I possibly could. So I found, yeah, around 200 to 300 was good. And even this has taken a long time just because there's so much going on. So again, back to this, there's a glare here, which gives it the glow, but I also added this kind of lens dirt, which makes, the lens kind of look dirty. And it actually, in my opinion, looks a lot better than the normal glow. Like if you deactivate the lens dirt here, let's see. It didn't look as good, in my opinion. Well, in this explosion, it's all right. But for some shots, the lens dirt helped it a lot. It helped give the glow a much more pleasing effect. Sometimes the glow in Blender isn't very, it's kind of harsh in some spots, and it looks a little unrealistic. So by adding this kind of lens dirt on top, this layer of lens dirt, which I kind of multiplied over the entire thing, and then the light shines through it, and that's how you get a really nice glow effect. Yeah, that's what I found. Okay, one more shot. Yeah, if there are other shots you want to see, then let me know. But there's so much detail that goes into each one of these. Like you could be here forever. We'll do one more shot for you guys. Okay, so this is a shot where all the bullets are flying. I kind of messed up here. I overwrote the original shot, which is, so the animation won't be totally correct here, but now he's gonna float off here. But you get the picture. This is a very heavy shot. So it's just a Mixamo running animation, okay? And then I parented the guitar to the hand. So I keyframed him along the dragon. The dragon itself is animated as well. The dragon is moving. This shot has everything in it. This is like surrounded by detail here. But anyway, the camera angle is around here, right? And then I keyframe
basically him running. These are all the keyframes kind of, yeah, so there's a big gap here. That's why he kind of runs off into the air. This is, I saved over it, so that's why they're gone. And the cool thing about this shot is the parallax, right? You got lots of different levels of depths going on. And then you kind of animate the dragon's head coming down too and looking and following him. Yeah, there's a lot that went into this shot. Yeah. Okay, so this, you see this here, this is where all the soldiers were. And for this was an interesting trick that I did. For the wide shots where you didn't need to see the soldiers up close, I just had gunfire. Yeah. I just had gunfire. So this is actually just one plate. This is like muzzle flashes. I made this in After Effects. I had a ton of muzzle flashes on one video texture. It's just one video texture here. Here, gunfire soldiers. Okay. And that's it. Because from a distance, that's all you need to see. The scene is too heavy to have all the soldiers in the shot as well. So all you need is those blinking lights, you know. And so I mapped it so it lined up with the soldiers that I had placed in the real geometry, in the real 3D. And I just made a flat 2D plane. So you don't need to see much. It's just this you just need to see lights there. And these individual blocks here, this is where the actual streak bullets are being emitted from. So it's really simple. It's just a particle emitter here, particle system, yeah, emitting 400, you know. Now, one of the things I ran into, that one of the problems was with a wide shot like this, getting the bullets to go in the right direction it took a long time for me to figure this out. Like these kind of bullet emitters, they would kind of follow Tetsugun as he runs across the screen. So I animated them so that they would kind of turn at the same time, right? And just be emitting bullets at the same time, right? But the problem was, in like a wide camera angle like this, they would be going in different directions. They wouldn't be going in the direction that I was like, what? Why is it going in this other direction? So you can see them here. Yeah, like originally they would be shooting and then they would be going off in the opposite direction. I would be like, what is going on? Why are they? And I spent days trying to figure this out. And eventually I figured out that the speed that you emit the bullets is what determines it. So the further away, like when you're really close to the bullets, like they'll shoot out fast in the direction that you want. When your camera's really close to them, they'll be really fast. But when you're far away, yeah, those bullets are already on their own. They have their own mind. You know, they're already going in a certain direction, and the camera, it doesn't look like they're following him. It doesn't look like they're following him. So I had to increase the speed of the bullet, basically. Here, the normal here, the velocity normal here. I think it was like half this. It was like only 100. And it looked good. For the close-up shot, you could see the streaks going in the direction that you want. But for these wide shots, where you really want the bullets to kind of be following the camera, and you're so far away, because this scene is gigantic. So that was like a big trial and error, kind of figuring out how that works. But yeah, there's this scene is just the culmination of all of the different kind of pieces that I had pieced together, because it's such a wide shot that you see so much. See this is the biggest scene yet. This is 10 million polygons. Although the most difficult, the heaviest shot to render for this entire project was the shot of all of the soldiers kind of collapsing to the ground after they get hit by the guitar wave, the karma blast. There's a lot of soldiers. I didn't even count them. There's a lot of soldiers, and that was like just moving the viewport was difficult. Just because the figures were pretty high poly to the soldiers. But for a shot like this, like, yeah, if you don't need to put them in, don't put them in. Don't put them in. You're not gonna see them. They're gonna be far away. You know, don't put them in. And it's moving so fast. It's like it's moving so fast. There's a lot of motion blur. Yeah, you can get away with a lot with motion blur. It helps. It helps hide a lot. All right. Well, I think that's good for now. If there's any other shots that you guys want to look at from this episode, leave it down for me in the comments. Let me know what you think. Man, there's so much I can talk about the episode, even about how I built the kind of the story part. Maybe I'll do a video on the mythology and the story. That'll be kind of its own separate video. But if you want more technical kind of breakdown videos like this, again, let me know in the comments and I'll try and put it together. So thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.